Good morning and welcome back to Planet Althistory. Today we are going to discuss what if Ethiopia industrialized. Ethiopia was one of the few African countries that stayed independent. Ethiopia has also a very long history. It had an extensive network of contacts, and the geographical area of Ethiopia was still known even during the Middle Ages as the Kingdom of Prester John. Even though most of the places around Ethiopia were Islamized, Ethiopia stayed in majority Christian. Italy tried to conquer Ethiopia, but they failed to do so the first time in 1895 and 1896. Ethiopia's territory is rough, it is very hot, and the newly created Italian army was not well equipped for such an adventure. Moreover, Menelik II, who was the competent emperor of Ethiopia, managed to modernize Ethiopia in a very considerable way. Menelik II read many books, he was educated in finances, he had various investments. This included, for instance, mines in Belgium, in France. He had investments in American and British railroads, and he also spoke many languages like Amharic, Oromo, Afa, Tigrigani, French, English and Italian, fluently of course. In OGL, Menelik tried to not only outlaw slavery as his predecessors, but he was forcing the different tribes to respect the laws, which is something very different than just creating new laws. Menelik II was able to establish relations with great powers such as Russia, for instance. He also managed to have some contacts with France, of course the UK, and he was somehow respected on an international stage. The first bank of Ethiopia was founded under his leadership, a postal system was introduced, and he was seeking to introduce a railway in his country. Moreover, he also ordered electric chairs, but his country didn't produce electricity at that moment, and he didn't send them back, but kept those chairs for himself. In 1909, unfortunately, he had a stroke and was unable to continue his rule. But what if this never happened and he stayed for more time healthy? What if he tried to somehow build a power plant to get electricity? What if Ethiopia industrialized? The first thing we could say is that when he would get the electric chair, he would order the construction of a power plant. He would also in here first try to get the French on the boat, but due to the differences that existed in OTL, it is very likely that, just like with the railways, this project would be abandoned. He would ask the Russians for help, with whom Ethiopia had excellent relations already, as they were both very orthodox. And of course, Russia would not do this for free, but they would get some concessions from Menelik II, which he would consider acceptable. In OGL, this railway project was only restarting in 1906, and with Russia on board in this alternate timeline, the works would finish much faster. Another possibility is that Menelik II would be interested in hydropower, because Ethiopia has many rivers, there is a lot of water, and also the geographical area, which is make a lot of sense. Having gold as resource would also push Menelik II to look for other examples, and it is not impossible that he would look at California, for instance, in the US, and be interested in the Pelton wheel, which was used in the mines and the mountainous areas of California. Keep in mind that Menelik II had investments in the US, and he knew a lot about the other countries around the world. Moreover, if we keep Menelik II longer in power, it would be possible that Ethiopia can successfully replace the Maria Theresa thaler with their own currency, which would be considered another advantage for the Ethiopian economy. The relations with other European powers wouldn't change that much, and Ethiopia would be seen as too stable for the Europeans. And especially the Brits, they would wait for rebellions within Ethiopia and probably then attack, as they did so often in OGL. Thus the UK could sponsor some rebellions of more conservative tribes which feel very alienated by the policies of Menelik II. And this time, with no uniting enemy such as Italy, these tribes could try to first negotiate with Menelik, but as Menelik had a clear vision on what to do with his country, he would face first of all minor rebellions only, and he suspected the UK to be behind it without proofs, and thus the thought of the UK being an opportunistic empire would stick in the mind of Menelik and his future successors. Fast forward during World War I, Ethiopia would stay neutral. They lose later on an important ally with Russia turning red, and they would have difficulties in finding a new ally who could replace Imperial Russia or Tsarist Russia. France would seem like a good choice after World War I, and with Menelik living longer, he would appoint Menelik II, and there would be also less turmoil, and the throne would all be settled except for few traditional tribe leaders who would not really be happy to bow down to a woman. Menelik II was, however, a more conservative person, and I think she would not become a progressive empress, but certainly be less conservative, and she would make more compromises with the regent Tafari Makonnen, who is the future Emperor Haile Selassie. However, the initial progress of Menelik II would slow down until Haile Selassie would become emperor in 1930, where industrialization would take a great leap forward again. Not only that, but the army of Ethiopia would also become much more modern, better, and due to the higher mistrust and the higher fear to lose their position to Britain, for instance, there would always be a very high alert. In the 30s, the focus would change from Britain to Italy, and Ethiopia would be able to defend themselves a second time. It would humiliate Italy for a second time, and it would have a huge impact in Europe. Italy would suffer probably some type of civil war, where Germany would support Italo Balbo. Italo Balbo was different than Mussolini, and he was also still very popular and still very known to the outside and also to the Italians. But with another Italian defeat, even for him, it would be a very difficult task to keep Italy all together. Italo Balbo would give the Germans the green light to annex Austria, and thus much of history would stay the same until the Second World War. Italy would not participate directly, but provide Germany with some type of assistance only. And we also have to keep in mind that Italo Balbo would not really be interested to participate in World War II, but due to the fact that the Germans would push him to somehow get some help from him, he would be pushed into giving manpower or weapons or some other type of help. Haile Selassie would feel alienated also from the French, and with the rise of Germany and seeing Japan as a successful non-European nation, and both of them in conflict with Britain, France and the Soviet Union and the communists who killed the royal family and destroyed orthodoxy according from his point of view, it is not that difficult to imagine Ethiopia becoming a temporary type of ally to the Germans and also to Japan. Much of the Horn of Africa would be taken with ease by Ethiopia, and finally Ethiopia would be able to free those areas from European rule, and I think it is even not far-fetched to see that the people who lived in those colonies would greet the Ethiopians as some type of liberators. The Germans would have also an easier time in Europe with no Italian involvement, who would just mess up with many things. And Britain would be busy in multiple fronts, because now with Ethiopia also in the war, they would have a serious problem in Africa. And if Japan still decides to attack Pearl Harbor, they would probably drop out of the war in 1945, while Germany might be able to last much longer, if not even for a decade, for instance. In the meantime, Ethiopia would be in a very comfortable position, and I think it is very likely that they might secure a treaty with the UK and also probably with France in the 40s. And the US, they would be anyways in favor of decolonization, and as the Ethiopians and the Americans would not really be in a direct conflict, only be on different parts of the camps, I think it is very possible that the US would just let the Ethiopians in the area and probably just not care so much as long as the Ethiopians would not try to attack an American ship or just do any other type of activity that would result in a direct confrontation. And as thus, I can see Ethiopia holding more territories such as Eritrea, Djibouti, parts of Sudan or South Sudan, Somalia would be totally annexed, and even parts of Kenya would be part of Ethiopia. And this Ethiopia would be in the same spot as Japan from an economical point of view, and there would be a slow transition from an authoritarian empire into some type of constitutional monarchy.